Good morning, boys and girls. Okay, today we're going to be talking again about our poster, which whose theme is science is everywhere. Remember, that's what we're studying. We're studying science and what happens, okay, and how things are different, and what happens when you put two colors together, and we will be reading that soon. But first, let's look at this poster. The focus question for this week is, how can objects change? Question mark. It's a question. How can objects change? Well, let's take a look at this poster. Here we have some children coming in, and when they come in, they get a balloon. Well, when you first buy a balloon, the balloon is not blown up, is it? So there's a special air that comes out of this tank that goes in the balloon and makes it big like a ball, a globe. All right? The balloon was very small at the beginning, and when you put that special air in it, it changed into a big balloon that looks like a ball, right? Then you see this little girl right here. She's looking at her shadow. She changed. This is her, and then her shadow looks bigger, doesn't it? But it's still her. But her shadow is showing something different. She changed. And over here we see a couple of boys and a little girl, a little boy, and the teacher. And they're putting colors together, and they realize and they discover that when you put two colors together, you get a different color. And we are going to read about more changes in our big book today. You see a lot of changes going on here at the Science Museum. But we're going to read today our big book called Watch What Happens. Now look at this, but look at the cover. We have a blue paint here, and then we have red paint here. You put it together, and what color do you get? Purple. You see? It changed. When you put two colors together, what happens? It makes a different color. Let's continue reading. As I said, the name of this book is Watch What Happens! Exclamation point. Remember, boys and girls, when we see an exclamation point at the end of the sentence, we talk with excitement. Watch what happens. Is Miss Melendez talking with excitement? Yes, I am. And this, remember, is called the title page because we see the title again. And this little, I think, a little boy, possibly, he is playing with what? That's your favorite, I guess, toy to play with Play-Doh. Play-Doh changes, doesn't it? When you hold it in your hand and you form it into different things, it changes, right? Let's keep reading. Let's take a look at this page, boys and girls. Things change all the time. Leaves change colors. Candles change size. Now, over here, the leaves in one of the seasons, it's green. All the leaves are green. But when the season changes, the leaves turn yellow. They're the same leaves, but they change based on the season. And what are the seasons that we have? How many? Who remembers how many seasons we have? That's right. We have 4 seasons. What are they? Winter, spring, summer, fall. And down here we have candles. This is the candle before it was lit. And you don't do that, boys and girls. Only mommies and daddies can light a candle, not children. But when the candle is lit and you let it just kind of like stand there for a little while, it starts to melt and it changes. All right, let's see what else happens. What else happens that changes? Okay. What else happens that changes? Here we go again. This little girl is playing with her Play-Doh. Clay changes shapes. She's rolling the Play-Doh in her hand, making it into a little ball. And sometimes she'll roll the Play-Doh in her hand and makes it like a long spaghetti. Play-Doh changes a lot depending on what you want to do with it. Then, here it is. I was talking to you about balloons, remember? Well, this is how the balloons look before you put air in it. Let's make some changes. What happens when you fill a balloon with air, right? There's a special air that you put into the balloon or regular air. Okay. What happens? What's going to happen? What do you think, boys and girls? The balloon gets bigger. Who's this? This is the clown, boys and girls. The clown is blowing up the balloon with air that's coming from his mouth. Okay? It's not the special air that we see here at the museum that comes out of this tank. That's a special air. No, this air that the clown is using is coming out of his mouth. Okay, and look at the balloons now. They're big. Let's see what else happens. Look at this, boys and girls. What happens when you mix colors together? Well, before we saw that when you mix red with blue, you get what color? Do you remember? Purple. That's right. Well, over here, we're going to find out what happens when you mix yellow and red. So we're going to find out what color we get. And of course, red and blue we know makes purple. And we're also going to find out what happens when you mix blue and yellow. So you may want to ask your parents at home, if you have paid at home, to help you with that experiment. And we are going to also do it later on in a different video. Miss Melendez will show you how those colors change. Today we're just reading the book. All right, so what happens to these colors when they get mixed? Let's see. Here we go. Yellow and red makes orange. Red and blue makes purple. And blue and yellow makes green. Isn't that interesting? What happens when water gets very cold? Here we see the little boy pouring water in the ice cube plastic container, right? It's a plastic containers to make ice cubes, right? So he's pouring water in there, water that you get from the faucet, right? So then he's going to put the ice cube container, a plastic container, in the freezer, in the refrigerator. What do you think is going to happen when the water goes in the freezer? Let's see what happens. Is it going to change? Will it change? We'll see. Yep. Here we go. The water that went in the ice cube plastic container turned into what? Ice. It turned into ice. It changed. Turned into ice. So when you freeze water and when you put the water in the freezer and you freeze it, it turns into ice. Now let's take a look at this. Here we have a big tall cup glass with ice cubes in it. What happens when the ice gets warm again? What happens when you leave the ice outside? You put the ice in your glass, but you leave it outside. You don't put it back in the freezer. What happens? What do you think is going to happen to the ice cubes? Take a guess. Let's see what happens. Let's see. The ice melts and turns back into water. That's how it started, and it goes right back to the water when you leave the ice cubes outside, and that it also melts. Okay, now let's see what else happens. What happens when water gets very, very hot? Now, boys and girls, here we see a pan. In the pan, there's water in it, right? And the pan is on the stove, on the grill, on the stove. You do not do this. Only adults, big people, grown-ups, your mommies, your daddies, your big brother, your big sister, your auntie, your uncle, only can do this. You watch with your eyes. So a big person, a grown-up, will take water, put it in the pot, put the pot on the stove. What do you think is going to happen to the water? Let's see. What do you think? Take a guess. That's right. The water starts to boil. The water boils and turns into steam. What you see here, boys and girls, this air that looks like fog is called steam. So when the water is boiling, the water is evaporating. And when the water evaporates, say that word, evaporates. When the water evaporates, it turns into steam. And the steam goes up high. You can have a grown-up show that to you. You do not do that. You do not go near a stove unless there's a grown-up with you. Remember that. Okay, now, what else changes? What else changes? Let's take a look. Here we have a ball. There's no air in it. So we get a tool that blows air in the ball, right? So the ball plus the tool that blows air equals what? The big beach ball. Now this beach ball has air in it. It changed. You see the difference? Here we have water that goes into the ice cube containers, plus you put it in the freezer, it equals ice cubes. And then again, here we have the color yellow, plus the color blue equals green. It changes. And the last page, boys and girls, is this one right here. Now you make something happen. What do we make happen? Red plus blue equals purple. Water in a pot and you put on the stove equals boiling water and steam. And the last example is you take the red color plus the yellow color, you mix them together, and it equals the orange color. So things change, boys and girls. When certain things are put together, it changes. Who remembers some of the things that we saw in this book that changes? Who remembers? Remember when we were in class and I would ask you these questions? Okay, you're right. When you put air in the balloon, it becomes a big balloon. What's another thing?